Hey guys, how are you? Welcome back to another movie review. Previously, I reviewed 18 Again, which was one of the 5 body swap movies that came out between 1987 and 1989. And before that review, I had done a ranking of those films from 1987 to 1989. The rankings were Big, that was my number one choice for those late 80s body swap movies. Big, followed by Vice Versa, followed by um, 18 Again, followed by the film I'm going to be talking about today, and then Dream a Little Dream. The film that I'm going to be talking about today is Like Father, Like Son. Came out in 1987. It was the first of those 5 body swap movies. And it starred Dudley Moore, Kirk Cameron, Margaret Collin, Catherine Hicks. I'm just reading it off of IMDb here. Patrick O'Neill, Sean Astin, Camille Cooper, Micah Grant, and Bill Morrison. It's directed by Rod Daniel, who also did Teen Wolf from 1985, the Michael J. Fox film. And it was written by Lauren Cameron, Steve Bloom, and David Hoselton. So as I said, Like Father, Like Son was the first of those 5 late 80s body swap movies that came out. And I have to say that it was, if not the worst, it was the second worst. I mean, really, Dream a Little Dream, I think, was just below it, but this had very little redeeming value at all. It was definitely a lesser effort on the part of everyone involved. I mean, basically, the story is Dudley Moore is a doctor in Los Angeles, a rich doctor, and Kirk Cameron is his son. He's kind of, I wouldn't say he's a dweeb. He's just kind of like an average student. You know, he's kind of struggling a little bit. He has a really annoying friend played by Sean Astin, and I like Sean Astin. I have nothing against Sean Astin. I just didn't like his character here, the way he was written and stuff. He was just really annoying. And so, what happens? Kirk Cameron is on the track team, just like Charlie Schlatter's character was in 18 Again. Kirk Cameron has a crush on this attractive blonde girl, just like Charlie Schlatter did in 18 Again. And Kirk Cameron is getting bullied by the girl's boyfriend, played by Micah Grant, who's also on the track team, just like Charlie Schlatter was bullied by the Anthony Stark character in 18 Again. So as I said in that review, these two movies have a lot of similarities in their setup, in addition to the body swap concept. Now, I will say that Like Father, Like Son had a much better plot device for its body swap than 18 Again. 18 Again, as I said in that review, was a car accident, which I thought was just really lame, just not very imaginative, not very interesting, and it also created a lot of other problems in the story later on. Here, it's a potion. Sean Astin's uncle is like this adventurer archaeologist, and he goes around to foreign exotic places, and he comes back with this vial of brain transference serum is what it's called, brain transference serum. And Sean Astin brings it over in a little vial of Tabasco sauce, and they experiment with it on the cat and the dog in Kirk Cameron's house, and they switch places, and they can't believe it. And the thing that really bothers me is they just leave the Tabasco sauce out in the open with the cap off, and the housekeeper comes over, and she doesn't have a clue. She puts the Tabasco sauce back in the cupboard, and I'm just saying to myself, why would these two guys, having witnessed what they just saw, why would they leave the Tabasco sauce with the magic potion lying out there? Like, why would they not put it back, or Sean Astin put it back in his pocket and leave the cap off? That was just one of many, many problems that happened in this movie. So the housekeeper puts the Tabasco sauce back in the cupboard. She doesn't know that it's a magic potion. Dudley Moore, by mistake, he puts it in his drink, and lo and behold, he looks at Kirk Cameron, and they switch places. Kirk Cameron's in Dudley Moore's body. Dudley Moore is in Kirk Cameron's body. And, I mean, just the usual stuff happens. Dudley Moore, now as the rejuvenated adult, he goes out on a shopping spree with Sean Astin. Kirk Cameron, who now has Dudley Moore in his body, he's more uptight and more serious now, and he's more scholastic and more academic, and he goes to school, and he... Oh, God. I mean, why am I even talking about this movie? I mean, I shouldn't even be doing a review of this movie. The whole stupidity of the thing is that they just have this magic potion. They look at each other and they switch. Why would they not just have more of the magic potion and look at each other again to swap each other back to their normal places? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, it was so stupid. It's like they would have spared us the 90 plus minutes of this movie, the stupidity that follows. But the usual stuff happens. I mean, Dudley Moore has to go to work. Even though he calls in from work, the boss catches him at home, and that doesn't make any sense. People just show up at this house. This Dudley Moore, Kirk Cameron, they live in this really nice, elaborate mansion in Los Angeles, and people just come in there all the time, like no doorbell, no security, nothing. People just show up on their doorstep, unannounced. Sean Astin shows up. The Patrick O'Neill, the boss at the hospital, he just shows up. And he catches Dudley Moore playing at home. Like he calls in sick, but he finds out that he was just playing around on the music and stuff. He says, "Oh, I guess you're feeling better. Come on in to work." Dudley Moore has to go into work. Of course, he doesn't know what he's doing because he doesn't know anything about medicine. So he just has all the interns do everything. I don't know. It's just there were so many problems with this movie. I mean, the continuity and the logic issues were just all over the place. I mean, so many moments rang false. Like they go into a bar, and Dudley Moore and Sean Astin, they go into a bar, and it's filled with women who are all sitting by themselves, and they all turn and look at the two guys walking in. It's like, come on. And then plus you have, of course, the cheesy 80s music, the cheesy 80s hair, the cheesy 80s outfits that everybody's wearing. I mean, you have to if you can get past that, and then just all the flashy MTV style cutting that was very popular back in the day. Like there's one point when Dudley Moore is doing when he is at home supposedly playing hooky, calling in sick. He's like walking around the house and just doing all these flash cuts of him walking around the house talking to nobody. He's just like mumbling to himself. It's just. I mean, there was so much bad stuff in this movie. It just really was a train wreck. It really was. I mean, I think it was also that another problem was that the characters were just so unlikable. I didn't like any of the characters in this movie, not one. Dudley Moore's character was too serious, too uptight. He was too hard on Kirk Cameron. Kirk Cameron was a goofball. He didn't take his work seriously. He was hanging around. Sean Astin was really annoying. Not Sean Astin. I like Sean Astin. I've liked his other work. But in this character, he was incredibly annoying. He had all these one-liners. There was a lot of mean-spiritedness in the piece. Patrick O'Neill, the boss, he was annoying. He was a jerk. Margaret Collin is his wife. She wants to seduce Dudley Moore, so she obviously has, she's not a likable character. Catherine Hicks plays one of Dudley Moore's workers at the hospital, and she's kind of a sort of a I don't know if know-it-all is the right word, but she's not very likable either. Nobody in this movie was likable, and it just it didn't have any heart to it. It just didn't have that's what I liked about the two body swap movies of that 5-film period that I like, Big and Vice Versa. Those two movies had a lot of heart. Big certainly had a lot, but even Vice Versa, it was very appealing. Judge Reinhold and Fred Savage, they played off each other very well. They had great chemistry together on screen. And there was just a likability about them, both of them, both characters, both. I don't know how to explain it, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, Fred Savage was a kid, so you can get away with a lot more stuff, fun stuff, when you have a little kid involved. But when you have a 17 or 18-year-old kid in a body swap movie, it doesn't really. It just when the swap happens, I just find that the adult, he then overplays how it feels to be a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old. I mean, Dudley Moore does some things in this movie that you would be shocked that were just rang false for a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old. I mean, especially just It didn't work. I mean, and that's why, like, and vice versa, like, an 11-year-old kid in, in an adult's body would probably have more fun with that. And, so it makes more sense. Like, if Judge Reinhold is acting kid-like, it would just make more sense because he's an 11-year-old kid who's now in an adult body. Even Tom Hanks, a 13-year-old, okay, you can kind of get away with that. But the Kirk Cameron character is supposed to be like a senior in high school. You would expect a little more maturity, I think, at that point. And the guy's supposed to be going to, he's applying to like Ivy League colleges to try to go pre-med. So it just, it was frustrating. It was really not a pleasant experience to revisit this movie. There were just so many things that didn't work, weren't funny, rang false, were poorly edited or just very cheesy, over the top, badly acted, very broadly acted, very silly. I mean, that's not the way to do a body swap movie. If you're going to do a body swap movie, you have to ground it in some kind of a reality, I think. You have to give it some kind of, some sort of depth, I think. Like, the movie didn't have any depth at all. It didn't ask any of the interesting questions that you really could ask when people are changing bodies. I don't know. That's all I can really say about it. I don't want to make it a long review. It's probably already longer than it needs to be. But I would say that this is definitely one of the worst body swap movies. Certainly one of the worst of that late 1980s period, and it's probably one of the worst that's ever been made. I mean, I really don't think it has any redeeming value. So that's Like Father, Like Son. Thanks for watching, and take care.